Good evening, everyone. My name is Luis Berispedia. I serve as chair of the Historic Districts Commission in Concord. Welcome to the June 16, 2022 meeting of the Town of Concord Historic Districts Commission. The commission will review two continuances and one new application this evening. One of the applicants has requested a continuance without discussion to the meeting of July 7th, for which I will ask for a motion from the commission to do so. At the end of the review of the applications, we will conduct some additional business. We're conducting this meeting online in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The public may access this call through both telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions following the petitioner's presentation and questions from the commission. To do so, please raise your hand in the participant function of the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. Our host will mute microphones of those not speaking, and in order to preserve bandwidth, and may need to turn off video, with the exception of the commissioners, the host, and the current applicant. I will call on each commissioner for comments on an application and then open the meeting for public comment. Once there are no more public comments, I will ask for a motion from the commission to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject. A second, and then conduct a roll call vote from the voting members only. Once the commission has acted on an application, the applicant is free to leave the meeting. I will do a roll call now of the members of the commission. Paul Ware, Melinda Shumway, Peter Nobili.
Here, present.
Henry Moss.
Here.
Dennis Fiore.
Here.
And I'm here myself. The voting members this evening will be Dennis Fiore, Peter Nobili, Melinda Shumway, Paul Ware, and myself. Today, I will make a change in the usual order of the hearings. And first, we'll conduct other business. At 7:10 p.m., we will consider the new application of 350 Main Street to repaint house and garage and replace lighting. Thereafter, we will consider the continued application of 52 Main Street and 615 Lowell Road. So if we can go to other business, Heather, the first one is a certificate of amendment for 1 Sudbury Road to change the paint colors and the driveway. Is the applicant here?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, hello. How are you? Welcome. Just let us know briefly what are the changes.
Thank you, commissioners. I'm sorry we're here again. Basically, this rendering with the light gray trim, we put that light gray trim on and realized that it was very, very ineffective. It was basically like white. So we've tried different grays, and the gray that looks closest to the contrast in the rendering is what we think is Stonington gray. So we would like to propose to use Stonington gray rather than what was approved, which was much lighter Wickham gray. So,
okay,
that's the first thing.
And you have all the swatches in town, in the offices of the commissioner, right? The samples and so forth.
I don't know, Heather, you have the actual samples, but I can definitely drop them by.
Yeah.
It's pure white and Stonington gray.
Okay.
Color.
Okay, I will ask comments from the commissioners. I'll start reverse alphabetical order. Paul?
I have no comments. It looks very straightforward, and I would likely approve it.
Melinda?
I think it's beautiful. I love the colors, and I have no problems with it at all.
Can I just interrupt and say that they had the driveway changes also?
Oh, that's right. We had what are the changes in the driveway?
So we had asphalt driveway approved previously in the application, and we would like to see what the commissioners think about our gravel and cobblestone apron idea, which we think is a little softer and a little more in keeping with historical sort of curbing and just more gentle. This is an example that we would model our driveway after. It's got 2 feet of cobblestones, about 4 rows, and standard 3/4 inch gravel, crushed gravel. And that's basically the specifications, those 2 things.
Looks pretty straightforward. So I'll go again. Paul?
Yeah, no change in my view. I'm fine with that.
Melinda?
I think it's a great idea. No problem with that.
Thank you. Peter?
No objections. Thank you.
Thank you. Henry?
I have a question. Is the paint color that is on the building today primer, or is it going to be that light?
It's primer right now.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is because these Italianate buildings were seldom white as such. So, okay.
Mhm.
I think both of the things that you're proposing make sense.
Thank you.
Dennis?
I have no problem. Looks great, both.
Thank you. And I have no comments either. So I will ask for comments from the public, if there are any. Okay, if there are no public comments, then I will ask for a motion to approve with conditions, deny or continue the application.
So I'll move that we approve the certificate amendment for paint color and driveway changes at 1 Sudbury Road.
Second.
Okay, Dennis?
In favor, aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Melinda?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You can stay. I mean, just get some popcorn. It's going to be be a good meeting.
Thank you, Heather, especially.
Yes, thank you, Heather.
Okay, the next matter to consider is a certificate extension for 8 River Street with a certificate of approval that was done in 2021. Are the applicants here, Heather?
No, they're not. I spoke with the owner through email and asked for the reason for the request, and there are multiple reasons, but the major one being they had a fire in their house, and they also are having shortages of or delays in material. So they've had a lot to do, so they haven't been able to get to it.
Okay. Well, I will ask for comments from the commissioners again. Dennis?
I have no comment. I think it's fine.
Henry?
No comment.
Peter?
No comment.
Melinda?
I think it's fine too.
Paul? And I have no comments either. Any public comments? So if there are no public comments, I will ask for a motion to approve this certificate amendment.
I'll move that we approve an extension of the certificate of approval at 8 River Street for 6 months. Is that what we typically do? I don't remember. Is it 6 months?
Day. Yep.
Okay, until I guess that would be January,
Yes.
sometime at our meeting in January, but 6 months from today.
Yes.
Okay, do a roll call. Paul?
I'll second and vote aye.
Perfect. Thank you, Melinda.
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So we are all set. And then we have to consider minutes from May 19 and June 2nd. Has anybody been able to look at these minutes?
I reviewed them both and have no comment.
I have to say that did the same thing, and I didn't have any comments. So if the other commissioners are agreeable, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from 5:19 and 6:2.
So moved.
Second.
And I will ask for votes from all members of the commission. Dennis,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Melinda,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay, so we shall go now to the first new public hearing, which is 350 Main Street, to repaint house and garage and replace lighting. Is Ms. Hardison here, the applicant here?
Hi, we're here.
Hi.
Oh, well, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
If you want to present what is your plan?
Sure. So I'm Fawn Hardison. This is my husband, David Mayer, and we live at 350 Main Street. So our plan is to paint the exterior of our house and garage custom color matches to the existing. The trim, which we're looking to lighten to a custom cream. Placement of all colors, clapboard, trim, doors, sashes, shutters will match the existing treatment. We're also looking to replace the exterior lighting pendants at the front and side entrances of the house with lantern pendants. And the lantern pendants will complement the lantern sconces on the garage.
Okay. And do you have specs for the fixtures that you want to install, right?
I do. They're included. I think we keep scrolling. Yep, right there.
Okay.
And then there's also elevations at the end.
Okay, maybe we can have a look at that. And of course, all these fixtures are dark sky compliant and so forth.
Sorry?
Are they dark sky compliant? So do they comply with all the requirements for protection of wildlife and the view at night?
Yes, and I think the maximum wattage is 60, but we're happy to use whatever wattage is recommended. We're not big light polluters, so we also don't even keep the lights on like all night, just at certain times.
Okay. All right. I will ask for comments by members of the commission. Paul.
I have no comments. Looks straightforward again.
Melinda.
I think it's just fine. I have no objections.
Thank you. Peter.
I like the color scheme, the substitution of the cream. These light fixtures are all under, aren't they underneath the porches? Or at least, so there isn't really a dark skies issue, Mr. Chair.
And there's no spillage, I assume, as well.
Okay, well, I have no problem with these selections, so no further comment.
Okay. Henry.
I think it's good, and the presentation is very clear.
Dennis.
I have no comment.
And I have no comments either. I think that it's a fine proposal. So I'll ask for public comments. And if there are no public comments, I will ask for a motion to approve, deny, approve with conditions, or continue this application.
So I'll move, if that's all right, that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for work to be done at 350 Main Street to repaint the house and garage and to replace some light fixtures as presented.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Dennis.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Melinda.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So the fourth quickest approval in the last 5 years.
Thank you very much.
You get a certificate for an ice cream in downtown.
My kids will be so
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next application, it's one of the continued public hearings, which is 52 Main Street. To remove, replace, and install new lighting, the applicant has requested a continuance without discussion to the July 7th meeting. So I will ask for a motion to continue the application of 52 Main Street.
So moved
I move.
to July 7th.
Okay,
Second.
perfect. Thank you. Dennis,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Melinda,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So congratulations. Okay, the next application that we will consider, it's that of 615 Lowell Road. Mike Bushnell to construct a single-family dwelling and detached garage on a vacant lot. Before we consider this application, I will make some remarks, as there has been considerable interest by members of the Concord community about this application. As you all know, this is the third time within the past 10 months that this commission considers an application to build a structure in this Lowell Road lot. Two previous applications were denied based on the size, scale, and massing of the proposed structures. The last denial on February 3, 2022 stated that the size, scale, and massing of the proposed structure is not appropriate to the land area and shape of the lot, even with a lot width exception. Neighboring structures and the surrounding streetscape and the structure as proposed disrupts the pattern of the historic streetscape. Furthermore, the commission found that a garage on this parcel may not be appropriate because the site is prominent and highly visible and lacks any means of minimizing or otherwise screening its visual impact on the streetscape. Now, the Concord Historic Districts Commission rules and regulations in Section 1, Application Process and Procedures, subsection 1.7, reapplication after previous denial, states the following. When applicants reapply after a previous denial, the application process is to be redone in its entirety. The new application must differ from the previous application in scope and or substance. If the new application is similar in scope to the previous denial, and the commission previously proposed conditions under which that original application could be deemed appropriate, then the new application's scope should reflect those conditions. New applications which are identical in scope to a previous denied application may be rejected by the commission. So this commission is pleased to consider this new application, and following the rules and regulations, expect the application will not be similar in scope to the previous denial and will address the conditions which led to the previous denial. This refers specifically to the size, scale, and massing of the proposed structure, as well as the garage, and all those issues were mentioned previously as reasons for denial. I also want to remind the applicant that this commission does not make design decisions, nor makes recommendations about the architectural features of proposed structures. Those are up to the applicant, the architect, and other parties engaged by the applicant. Observations of commissioners regarding architectural features are in the context of how these features relate to the historic references of the site, and it's up to the applicant to use these observations to generate a design that is consistent with the historic references of Concord. Finally, this commission acknowledges the receipt of multiple comment letters which have been posted in the commission's current documents webpage, and which all have been reviewed by the commission members. We welcome the comments of members of the public, but ask everyone not to repeat the contents of a submitted letter, but rather be brief and concise about the issues being presented. The commission will be particularly interested on any new information or any issue that has not been previously considered. So after that long introduction, I am happy to welcome Mr. Bushnell for the presentation about 615 Lowell Road.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Rich Harrington from Harrington Associates. Here is a representative from Mike Bushnell, who's here as well. Thank you for your time this evening. Heather, do you share the screen, or is it you would have it on your screen?
I have it to share,
Okay, terrific.
or if you want to, you can also share.
No, yours is fine.
Okay.
Just a little history on this property. Previously, I did work at Stamsky McNary, and I was a project engineer that determined the layout of the lot lines and the ultimate subdivision of this property by the surveyor at Stamsky McNary. This lot conforms with current zoning, and allowances were made to allow flexibility in the siting of the house at the regular setbacks and lot widths that are required. And then with the 40,000 square foot area, we considered the existing structures and trees that were abutting the abutting property of number 625, and we respected those current features, knowing that we were in the historic district as well. So there was some pre-built-in thought to this historic district when this lot would come for approval for new construction. And although it's not reflected or thought of, I just wanted to provide that feedback. So what you have in front of you is a complying lot under today's zoning. It has good sand and gravel that allows us to place a septic system in the ground without any ground mounding of the earth. Everything is at grade existing, and it allows us to have flexibility in the architecture to achieve a certificate of appropriateness, which we're seeking from this commission tonight. And there is a memorandum letter from Heather Gill, dated May 27, 2022. The applicant met with staff and reviewed in detail the application and the concerns, and they produced this revision by Elise Stone, the architect. I've worked with Elise over multiple properties and over 20 years across town, and her talents are exceptional, and she's able to understand the regulations and work with the commission, and to also provide a design that meets the character of the neighborhood. The application that the staff did provide, the memorandum listed some lot widths similar within the district, and it mentions over 10 to 20 different properties, and some have more square footage than what we're going to talk about. I can call that up later. If it's possible to look at the plans, Heather. So this is the landscape architect plan prepared by Dave Fisher. And what it shows is our driveway entrance on the right on Lowell Road. And Lowell Road is an oversized right of way due to the realignment of the property. So there's additional land between the edge of pavement or the gutter and our frontage, providing extra setback that's unrealized by dimensioning of the plot plans. We are proposing a driveway, a single entrance driveway, unlike the abutting properties, which have two driveway entrances and a loop driveway towards the corner. We have a proposed attached garage that's in the back right-hand corner of the plan. And when that detached garage is set back behind the back of the primary building, we're allowed to go within 5 feet of the side lot line. So what we have is a proposed driveway. We've detached the garage, and so we have a 7.7 foot separation between the proposed dwelling and the two-car garage. And that's similar in character with many properties that you do see around town. The outline of the building, we are set back at the minimum setbacks to the road, which was the intent of this design of the lot, and the shape of the architecture, and brings a first floor master down to allow for more first floor living, a lower in scale, and the deck is on the property on the bottom, or patio area opposite of number 625. So there'll be plenty of screening and privacy from this layout. As you know, there's large trees along the top of the property. the right sideline, and those will be complemented with additional screening and plantings. I was at the property today and I got to meet Mr. Santoro, and we spoke briefly. And I walked the frontage of his property on Barrett's Mill, walked up past the Hildreth House and all the way down Lowell Road. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's about 50 cars waiting to pass through this intersection along our frontage. We can see this property from our frontage and also from Barrett's Mill Road as cars stop at the intersection, which everyone knows. It's not that's one of the reasons why we're here, because this house will be visible from the public street. It doesn't mean it's not visible. It means it's because it is, we have to seek some certificate from you. If you can scroll down to the next one. So what we have here, this is the proposed plot plan, which reflects the landscape plan that we just spoke about. And Lowell Road's on your right-hand side. The zoning setback is 40 feet of front yard, and we're just at 41 feet, which is similar to other homes that we typically design. It meets the setbacks on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the primary structure, and the rear yard has plenty of depth, and then it shows the proposed garage like we spoke about. There's also some easements of the trees that abut on the top right sideline that the applicant and the owner has worked with the abutters to apply those easements and to work with the neighbor in anticipation of this proposed new construction. Next. This was an alternate design. This is something that the applicants want to do. The benefit of this is it brings a shorter driveway. It provides a smaller massing as you look towards from the intersection from Barrett's Mill side. If that's of benefit, it doesn't impose upon any of the everyday living of the property because it's down the left sideline, what I spoke about earlier. So if this is a preference, then we'd be willing to do that. This is sketch plan option number 2. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the current elevations. Next, please. So this is the elevations provided by the front elevations at the top. You can see a gambrel style. It has more detail than before, which is one of the items to review by this commission. It is distinct and different from the abutting property, which they've worked away from. And then the left side elevation on the bottom reflects the second floor on the primary front of the building is less because we moved the master bedroom down to the first floor level. And you see the profile as you go from the front of the building to the right of the page back to the rear property. It's all 1 story. Very similar to what you see on the Hildreth House on the other property. When you walk down this, is a main primary structure. With the Hildreth House is the 3 brick sides, but it has wooden clapboards on the back. And that house then drops down in elevation to different additions over time. And so this design by Elise takes into account some of the other styles of the footprints within the neighborhood. Next. This is the right side elevation, which faces Barrett's Mill Road. So when you're coming down from the Middlesex School and Carlisle area at the stop sign, this would be somewhat visible, but not entirely, given the existing trees, the proposed tree screening, and the abutting house next to us at 625 and their landscape wall for a patio. Again, main primary structure, side entry door, plenty of extra detail, another side entry back where you come out of the detached garage over to the back of the building in all low profile. So what you have is a roof line that's much lower than the abutting properties, and it's been reduced in dense massing and all the criteria which are of concern. Next. This is the detached garage. So it's traditional in style. This is being constructed in different manners across town. What you have with the front elevation is it has the appearance of a traditional old style 1-car garage, which an addition off to the side. So the architecture takes into account the additions over the timelines that you read in the historic register of the abutting properties, such as the Hildreth House, where different architects might get involved and use different materials. So you'll see a shake style primary and then the clapboards on the second garage. and there's a smaller footprint on the right-hand side. So the scale of it is 22 to 24 feet, and left to right is 26 feet just to allow the doors. And then there's on the top right, the pedestrian door will be on the left side. So after the cars enter this detached garage, they would exit either through the front doors into the back of the yard or through the side door. So complete privacy and screening with the additional plantings to the abutting property number 625. And then the right side elevation. So if you're in the, where I spoke and talked to Mr. Santoro today, this is the right side elevation on the bottom left of the page. That's what you'd see. You'd see two small windows of a one bay garage on and a lower profile roof line and some plantings at the edge of the foundation. Next, please. As you know, the application has requirements for a floor plan. So the second floor plan, it's been reduced in scale just to the front part of the building as far as the second floor elevation. And it has 3 bedrooms and a stairway. Well, the primary staircase is to the left, away from Hildreth House corner and number 625. So all your everyday access and living in the windows will be away from the abutting structure. Next. And you can see the roof line of the back property is traditional. The first floor plan to the right of the page is the front, the right elevation facing 529 and Barris Mills to the top of the page. So what we have is, actually, sorry, my bad, let me back up. The left side of the page is the front. So you have a study in the front, the side porch on the right-hand side with the entry. We have a dining and kitchen room. So your kitchen would be on the left side of the dwelling. Family room with the patio out the back. So it's only a couple steps off the primary family room to the patio. So you'll be at existing grade. And then you have the master bedroom suite, which was added in that location there in the back right of the property, as opposed to having it up above a garage on the second floor. So what you have is a house that's about 90 feet in depth. And that is somewhat traditional to many of the homes that you see with the additions over time. And the left to right is about 40 feet, which that's the benefit of Elise Stone's designs. They have many indentations or bump outs in architectural style that allows it to fit properly within many sites without encroaching on the minimum setbacks at all locations of the sidelines. Next, please. And is that the end there? Okay. And the lighting that they have proposed is the typical farmhouse lighting, which dark sky friendly, and some lantern style for the sides of the houses. And so the applicant is seeking a 3,500 square foot house. This is the farm light detail and the lantern type detail of the lighting on the building. And there, one more thing. Then this is the frontage. So this is where the driveway location would be. Through the tree line, there's a for sale sign. The realtor sign is on the frontage right there. Directly behind that, you'll see the large trees that are numbered 1 through 4. And then behind that, you'll see a window. That's a detached structure of the abutting Mr. Santoro. We held 17 feet off of that when we created the lot line. That area in front of that house and those large trees could have been part of this lot. But however, we felt that it was more appropriate to the historic district to maintain those trees by placing this lot line and providing a lot width that met the zoning, and while still saved all those trees before you tree by law too, I believe. So to the left of this curb cut, there's a granite stone right there. And when you walk down towards Keys Road, there's additional monuments like that. And also at the Hildreth House, which has off of Low Road, it has a loop driveway. It also has those common features of the old granite posts at the entrances, which we could also duplicate and have it look more appropriate for this neighborhood. In this picture also, you can see the red barn, which is a larger structure with the peak, and off the back of the barn is a garage door where I met Mrs. Santoro. So A lot of the activity, I believe, for the abutting home is looking out towards this vacant property. It's my understanding, it's well known that this was a potential house lot, as referenced by the easements that were granted onto the property through their deed as benefits when they purchased this property from the previous owner. So what we have is an applicant who is purchasing the lot from an owner that worked with the professionals to create additional easements and protections of features within your historic district commission prior to offering it for sale to a builder or developing it by themselves. We'll be maintaining some of the trees along the streetscape to the left there, as shown on the landscape plan. And as you can see that the elevation of the grass and lawn is very flat, and it starts to drop down in the back tail area of the property. And although it looks narrow on a piece of white sheet of paper, what that does is it creates a permanent screening by having that strip of land go off the back to get the minimum lot area by protecting all those trees. Next page, please. So zoom in. So what you see is trees from Lowell Road to the right. You'll see trees 6, 5, and 4, and 3, which are on our property. 2 and 1 are off the property. And then you'll see lot 4 label is 40,470 square feet. And then the lot width requirements for zoning is it has to be 50 feet wide. So as you go all the way down to the end of the rear property, you'll see a dimension that's 54.76 feet, a little bit further on the left-hand side there. And that is right there. So what we have is a property that protects the vegetation behind the abutting lot number 2, which is currently field off of Barrett's Mill Road, and doesn't provide an opportunity for clear cutting of a lot. So this actually insulates and provides more screening and protection within the historic district by achieving this layout. And I was involved in as an engineer and professional, working over 28 years within the town of Concord. So projection wise, we believe that this plan is eligible for a certificate of appropriateness. We feel that adjustments have been made to reduce the massing, the scaling, and by having a detached garage, it's more in harmony with many other properties in town or within this district. And there's the letter from Heather Gill, which reflects the meetings that herself and Marsha and Elizabeth, they met, and she prepared a detailed square footage list. Have you found that yet, Heather?
I don't have that letter.
We have it.
And so what it basically reflects is there's 3 houses on Barrett's Mill Road, there's 6 houses on Lexington Road, 2 on Lowell Road, and more on Lexington Road, Main Street, and Walden Street that have different shapes of a lot other than a rectangle. So we feel that based on the current conditions and the training that we received over the years from your town staff in recognizing the importance of protecting trees and providing suitable setbacks for outbuildings when you have a farmhouse on a corner lot, is the goals that created those lot lines up front in anticipation for tonight's application for certificate of appropriateness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Can you hear me, Heather? Oh, thank you. All right, so I'm going to ask for comments from the commissioners, and I will start with Dennis Fiore.
My first question is my first observation is that the square footage in this house has changed by 100 square feet from previous applications. So there really has been no effort to reduce the size of the house. As I remember, the heart of the comments made by most commissioners and those in the community where they wanted to see a smaller house. You know, I've been on this commission for a long time, and I've looked at a lot of these similar projects. And I like to see the projects as compromise. The builder compromises, we compromise, the community makes its comments, but it goes along with what we decide. I'm not seeing that the builder's compromised an iota here. He's moved the volumes around, which is very nice, And I have to admit it looks better on the property, but we said we wanted a smaller house on the property. And the community told us they wanted a smaller house on the community. He has not made a smaller house. So he's put me in a box. And that is that I voted in the past against it because it was the same darn size and he has not listened to the commission. I think all of you heard what Louis said at the beginning of this. We don't want to see the same old thing. We want to see something different. And you have to listen to what we said and make changes. The massing is nice, but I don't see that it's been reduced in size. I should further say that Heather's list of houses is a real mixed bag and frankly useless. Some of those houses are 150 years old. Some are barns that were on another house that were sliced off in property. So of course they have a smaller lot. Some, I looked at a couple of them that I was on the commission and approved, were often on the site of a house that was torn down. So it's a mixed bag and it frankly doesn't do anything. Just because the lot isn't a rectangle doesn't mean that it applies in this situation. I would also say, and go back to one of my previous remarks, and that is that the community has spoken. I've heard the community lately say they don't want the changes on Thoreau Street. They say that they wanted scenic roads. They voted for them. The citizens of this community really care for this community and want to protect it. And what they're saying is that this is inappropriate in this particular location. So they don't dictate what we decide in these meetings, but they have a great influence and they have all along. We listen to them in every project. They're not just window dressing. And in this project, I've listened to them very carefully. I'll make one last remark, and that's about the density. This is more density than almost any other place on Lowell Road. The only other place with the same density is where a house was wedged in between an existing house and a lot further back that I think now it was inappropriate. That's the only place it's this kind of density. If you go along Lowell Road, there's plenty of space between houses. I may be wrong. There may be a couple of others that get close, but the only place that I've seen that even comes close to this is where there was a new build wedged in where it shouldn't be. So anyway, I have real questions about this application, and I don't see a lot of difference.
Thank you, Dennis. Henry Moss, please.
Thank you, Luis. This parcel size is small compared to the larger sites on each of the four corners of the intersection. Its shape affects the location of the house and the driveway in relation to the boundaries, but not, I think, in ways that damage perception of the older properties at the intersection. The area of the house in relation to the size of the lot is less important than the massing, street elevation, and the materials of the proposed house and garage. The applicant's landscape design does address frontage and boundaries in a reasonable way. The arborist report that was posted notes preferred treatment of existing trees, which I think is helpful. But I think having visited the site, that the one existing maple along the north border closest to the road deserves special protection during construction. If the commission issues a certificate of appropriateness, it should include the condition that the applicant submit a tree protection plan that is part of the construction documents. The Barrett's, this is what I think is significant in this discussion. The Barrett's Farm Historic District was created to protect the agrarian history of the plain, as it was called, along with its early farmhouses and barns. The intersection of Lowell Road and Barrett's Mill Road was the site of the North Quarter assemblage, a blacksmith shop, general store, cooper, cobbler workshops, taverns, inns. Lowell Road was realigned in the second quarter of the 19th century to create a simpler crossroad. This was a center of Concord during the winter when passage across the river was impaired by flooding and other issues. The Hildreth House is the most important individual building in the area, and the red barns near and the three barns nearby are significant evidence of prior agricultural uses, which is I relate that back to the original reason for creating the Barrett Farm district. No views of these important structures will be significantly affected by the proposed house. More generally, for the house, its massing and orientation minimize impact on the street frontage in the current design. It's a half story to a story lower than neighboring houses that we see at the intersection. The applicant's designer, in my view, has responded effectively to previous comments by commissioners about the building's architecture. The gambrel roof, shingled upper story, more thoughtful placement of the entrance porch enclosure, and the garage division into a gable single unit with a lean-to combine appropriately for that area where a number of service buildings are visible from the main ways. A second condition that I would recommend if the project goes forward is that paint colors for the house and garage be submitted to the commission for review. Neighboring houses are white, apart from the brick portion of the Hildreth house, but this new house might be less assertive visually. If my vote were to count, I would vote for approval with the two conditions that I recommended, the tree protection plan and colors.
Thank you very much, Henry. I'll ask Peter Nobili to make comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Heather, can we look at the renderings that were submitted that are on the website? There are 5 pages of renderings. Would you mind putting those up? Thank you. I think my comments, I really would just build on what's been said before by my esteemed colleagues. I very much appreciate this design, which I think is well thought out and rendered. The trouble I'm having with it, if maybe just stay on the very first image, Heather, please, thank you, is that the way the buildings are massed on the site starts to create a kind of compound because they're kind of crowding out now to the lot lines and setbacks, which I think out of context is fine. Again, I think the design, as Henry pointed out, is actually very well thought through. But in this context, it's just too close to the next house, in my opinion, given the existing landscaping patterns in the area. I do think that those existing building spacing and landscape relationships in the Hildreth Corner area proportionally are integral to the character of this particular district, which again, our mandate is that we preserve the essential historic character of the district. And the only other thing I guess I would add is that I also share Dennis's strong sense of my fellow citizens' opinion, which I feel like would be unwise to ignore, especially given what happened at town meeting this year. But really, I think my struggle is primarily, again, with, I think this image says it all for me. It's a fine design in and of itself, but it's a very narrow site and it's crowding the site, which is why it feels inappropriate to me for this particular site. So that's all I have at the moment.
Thank you very much, Peter. Melinda Shumway.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking at page 47 of the historic design guidelines. And it says here, in addition, well, the HDC will consider the impact of the proposed structure on the existing streetscape, its visibility from the public way, and the building's proposed materials, style, location, and details. In addition, the size, scale, and massing of the building must be appropriate in relation to the land area, neighboring structures, and the surrounding streetscape. Now, these guidelines for the HDC can be interpreted in many ways. They are not so specific that we can rule things out easily or instantly. But my interpretation of this is that this particular building does not meet the standards that we're looking for within the historic district. I like the building, although I will say the triple windows down the front made me a little skeptical about historic district, but we as the commission has repeatedly suggested that the garage be obliterated because it makes it look too crowded. If you look at this drawing that we're all looking at right now, their building, which I'm assuming is a garage in the back there, I don't know if their barn is, it's far away from the house itself. There's nowhere else, I understand, there's nowhere else to put a garage on this property. But the truth is, it ruins the look of the historic district ideals. And we have asked repeatedly that they shave, 700-800. I don't even think we're that specific, but I think we were saying going down to 2,500, but I think little effort has been made to do this. And I just can't, I could not approve this the way it is.
Thank you very much, Melinda. Paul Ware, please. You are muted.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I have a little different view, perhaps not shockingly. I don't disagree in principle with many of the comments made by my colleagues, but I think we ignore the importance of this corner today. I mean, it's all well and good to talk about the 18th century or the 17th century and what Hildreth's Corner was and the blacksmith shop and so forth, but that's not what it is today. And the fact is that approaching that corner from either Lowell Road or Barrett's Mill in general, by the time you get to a point at which this property could be visible through the trees, you're really in a life-saving effort at the junction of the two roads to stop and allow other traffic. It's a busy spot. It's a very crowded spot at certain times of the day. So in other words, what I'm saying is I think a 21st century view of how this area is being used today is relevant. So that's number one. Number two, I disagree with how strongly my distinguished colleague has put what he characterized as an utter failure to respect the comments of the commission in terms of downsizing this. 100 square feet isn't 1,000 square feet, but it's an effort to meet us in the direction in which we asked the builder to go. And it also recognizes that the builder and the property owner has the right to build something on this land. And I think that something needs to be realistic. And it seems to me that this design, which dramatically altered the profile from Lowell Road, is a significant step forward in terms of the perspective from Lowell Road, addressing the concerns of people about the character of the houses in the community. And as I said earlier, given the screening from Barrett's Mill Road, I find it hard to believe that much of this is going to be particularly attention worthy by the time you get to the corner of Barrett's Mill and Lowell Road. So I think, honestly, some of those comments are histrionic. So I disagree with them. I also disagree with the notion that the work of the town planners and the assistant planner who is just left for other life reasons is meaningless and a waste of paper. I just don't agree with that. I think it's relevant that in historic districts, there are numerous dwellings of comparable size of less than 70-foot setbacks, which we've approved and which fit quite nicely within the historic district. I lived for 25 years on Lexington Road at 525. There are many, many homes on Lexington Road, which are almost on the street itself. And I understand that the character of Lexington Road is a whole different ballgame. But on the other hand, some consistency in terms of what we do and why we do it is a virtue, I think. There are homes on Lexington Road that have zero historic value that we've approved, new homes, in the last 10 years that by no measure meet any kind of historic character. And I think it's unfair and inconsistent for this commission to impose a sort of standard on this particular lot that's not been imposed in other historic districts. And I think that's the punchline from the planning division's document. And I don't think it's irrelevant that the planning division says that in her view, granted, she's not the most senior person, she's not, she's not on the board of directors of the town, she's not a select board member, but her conclusion, her professional conclusion, having served us so nobly and so long, is that the builder has designed a house that is, quote, compatible architecturally with the streetscape and the surrounding buildings in the district. If that's the case, then the issue is the visual and what the screening can do. Can you put back up the streetscape from Lowell Road? I think that's more helpful. I mean, people can look at this letter and her conclusion, but I have a problem with the notion that we, in effect, ignore the fact that there are 20 or 25 other houses in historic districts which have been approved and which violate the very norms which this committee purports to espouse tonight. I think it's wrong, and I think it's inconsistent, and I think it's unfair to the builder, the developer, the buyer, and for that matter, if the community had chosen to buy this lot, to the community itself. I think we also have to recognize that as a practical matter, the community is not going to be happy with anything other than open land here. And while that's a noble objective, we have to move with the times to some extent, and we do our best to conform those changes to the historic values that are so important to all of us. And they are important. I don't mean to minimize those, but I think there's a countervailing value, and that is fairness, the rights of the developer, the fact that the world has to move on, including at Hildreth's Corner, the fact that this is a legal lot, the fact that professionals have designed it, the fact that the builder has downsized it, characterized by one of our number as, with a wave of the hand, as essentially meaningless. I don't think it's meaningless. I think the profile is significantly different. I think I totally agree with Henry's comments regarding conditions, including landscaping conditions, perhaps substantial tree plantings, paint colors, a host of parameters or criteria that can protect this further. But I think that the developer and the owner have made a good faith effort here to meet our criticisms. And I think to give it the back of the hand and pretend that they've, quote, done nothing is really a dishonest characterization of the history here. I would vote to approve it with substantial conditions, and I'm not prepared to articulate what those would be, but certainly landscaping would be a serious and important condition. It might involve substantial tree lining. It might be expensive, but I think it would work. Paint colors, also important. Lighting, of course. So in a nutshell, without getting any windier, I would approve the application. I think it's a good faith application. I think that it's consistent with what this commission has done and should be doing. And I'm not ignoring the community's input here. but we have to be realistic. I've been through this with my own land on Lexington Road. And, of course, the community opposes development in general. And that doesn't mean they're wrong, but it means we try to find a way to compromise and to, adverting to those historic characteristics that are important, also recognizing the rights of the applicant. And I don't feel that's being done here.
Thank you, Paul. We'll make some comments. I can echo some of the same comments that my colleagues have made. And I will also frame my comments on certain texts of the guidelines and the rules and regulations. I can quote verbatim what was quoted by Melinda Shumway about the historic design guidelines in page 47, so I won't do it again. And I refer to paragraphs 3.4 and 3.5 of the rules and regulations in page 10, which state that the commission task is to preserve the important and diverse features which contribute to both individual property and to the historic districts as a whole. Preserve the context of the property on its site. Any adjoining buildings and their combined assemblage will contribute to the decision to approve. Changes in massing are of particular concern. And at a minimum, the project should not be detrimental to historic portions of the property or its distinctive features. So my interpretation of our mandate is that we have to pay a lot of attention to all those factors that preserve the historic references of Concord. And I believe that the reason that such commission as ours exists is because there has to be a balance between the rights of property owners and developers, as my colleague Paul Ware has mentioned, with the interests of the community as a whole and the preservation of the historic references. So, having taken into account all the observations that were previously made, I don't believe that this application is appropriate. The current application is a 4-bedroom house, which measures 3,500 square feet. From my perspective, that reduction in size, it's very small, and I do not consider it to be meaningful. It also has a detached 2-bay garage. I believe that the structure is too long. While some of my colleagues have appreciated the fact that it's composed of many modules, I find that the modularity makes it much more difficult to accept, as it increases the massing, which is something that we return over and over again. And as such, I don't believe that if we analyze each of the elements of this design will comply with the historic design guidelines and with the rules and regulations of the Historic Districts Commission. There's another comment that I want to make that has there's somebody has their microphone on. Can you all hear me? I got some interference. Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to refer to a letter by our former town planner that has been referred a number of times. She expresses an opinion that essentially the house is appropriate based on the analysis of 24 properties that are located within historic districts that have a comparable lot width to the lot width of 615 Lowell Road. And I did review the data that was used to support this opinion. But furthermore, I did analyze the data with mathematical tools and analytical techniques. And this data set has no information whatsoever. When I say that it has no information whatsoever, it means that all the variables that are included in this data set are all randomly distributed, meaning that none of them can be used as a reference to say that one thing is similar or different from another, because they are all more or less the same. So from an analytical standpoint, this is a very essential mistake to assume that this data set actually has enough information to support any type of conclusion that it's made, much less the structure, the conclusion that it's made that the structure is appropriate. Furthermore, if you look at the data set with a little more detail, and then you filter those properties that are actually relevant to the property that we have under discussion, which are the properties that would be located in Barrett's Mill Road and Lowell Road, then what the data shows is that this particular proposed structure is substantially different from the rest of the structures in Barrett's Mill and Lowell Road. So I don't believe that this proposal complies neither with the rules and regulations, and I don't believe that the analysis that has been made is persuasive in any way. As a matter of fact, I believe that it's in error. In my opinion, the proposed structure is not appropriate to the land area and shape of the lot, lacks context with neighboring structures and with the surrounding streetscape. And the garage as a separate structure contributes negatively to the effect of massing. All right, having heard from all commissioners, then I will ask for public comments. The first one we have is Bill Page. Go ahead, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis, and thank you to the commission. And thank you for all your time over this excruciating 18-month period. We're clear, all of us, as HDC committee members and citizens, about the HDC guidelines, the operating procedures, the governance, and objectives. I want to thank Concord's Historic Districts Commission for their governance these past 18+ months, as we've all dedicated huge amounts of time to the applicant, the developer's plans for a single-family house on Hildreth Corner. The HDC has, from day one, illustrated with all their resources, with civic humility, how the plan, now plans, plural, does not fit the corner. Many citizens have expressed concerns, offering suggestions. By the way, these are free focus groups to the applicant. If the applicant had listened to the HDC and the concerns of the citizens, I believe he would not be staring down the face of a 500 basis point melt up in mortgage rates. This project would be well under construction. Now, the applicant chose to submit a plan with little change to his key driver, which I raised 3 meetings ago, return on investment, which is measured for a developer by square footage. So here we are, as the developer attempts to cut backroom deals at all costs with other town employees and committees. I believe the applicant seeks to pressure the HDC as a committee and individuals, which we've all, as concerned citizens, have posted, including town operating policy. My wife, in regarding to recent activities on signage, also curiously, we've had signage put down as concerned citizens and taken by the town. And in our 24+ years of living in Concord, never before with other organizations we've supported or expressed concern about have we had signage taken down for the likes of Tricon, the Umbrella, and CYT. this is all linked. To Louise, I just want to say brief and concise. I didn't submit a letter, but we've been in these meetings. I think it's now upwards of 7. To Mr. Harrington, the reason why the driveways are looped is to enable proper decarriaging of draw horses historically. That's why the driveways are designed the way they are. Homes, you said typically design. Mine is a 1750 half house, 2 houses away, built over 100 years, starting in 1750. It's come to my knowledge that the Santoros have not approved anything you've discussed with them, and it was only a brief 5-minute meeting. And I believe also that communication you have with them does not equate to their agreement. To the HDC, I just want to say that your former comments expressed you did not want to see a garage, and then you did articulate square massing, but that's been brought up by former HDC comments this evening. To Mr. Ware, so you're in the HDC. This is all about was. Everything you do in your committee is about what has been, and the historical significance of Concord properties. So what shall we do with Concord Center then? Do you want to put up new builds in Concord Center at the Rotary? And then your reference to it's crowded is most of the use of Concord Road. Most of the use of our community over the last decade has been bypass cars coming through to cut through on Route 2 and 3. It's not mostly Concord citizens. So what we have said to you in the past, Mr. Ware, is that yes, we want something to be built. We understand the references, our concerns about what is appropriate to the guidelines that you represent as a committee member of the HDC. So don't use your committee's failures as future precedent. Don't admit to those failures. And Dennis alluded to one down the street. That new build down Lowell Road has been a disaster that I've used as precedent frequently with this committee as something that we do not want to see completed in the future. So the HDC, I think the guidelines have been, if you've ignored the guidelines in the past, Mr. Ware, why would you want to continue to ignore the guidelines in the future? So I want to call that comment out. I disagree that I think a build is possible, but please listen to the concerns of your own committee and the citizens in good faith. History is all we have. It's what differentiates this community, and I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Page. William Gregory.
Luis,
Yes.
I just want to interrupt and just remind everyone that they need to state their name and address for the record before
I'm sorry,
speaking.
I did later on. It was William Page, 702 Lowell Road.
Thank you.
Okay, and William Gregory will state his name and so forth. And
William Gregory, also known as Terry Gregory.
somehow you are 90 degrees tilted.
Okay. I'm going to try this again. My computer has been.
Well, we don't mind you being tilted anyway, so you can go ahead.
Okay. So I think there's been a lot of good conversation here, and I'm not sure. I did check before the meeting to see if my letter was posted, but I did not see it posted. Heather, was that for a reason, or have you read my letter? Have the commissioners read my letter? Dated June 14th?
If it's not on the website, then it probably has not been seen by the commission, and it's just an oversight, that's all.
Okay, well, why don't I read this then? Dear valued HTC commissioners, looking for your help and attention regarding the additional application for 615 Lowell Road, as I'm having a rather difficult time understanding why the current design has come forth again. Given all of the valuable time and feedback you have provided in this past year, your efforts that have been patiently and thoroughly offered towards one of the most important slices of historic Concord is now at a pinnacle moment in our history. For a quick review, the first application in 2021, the square footage was 3,420 square feet. Height, square footage, massing, and location concerns defined by the HTC And after careful considerations and 2 site visits and a review of the application, it was denied due to the height, massing, and square footage. And this was much debated by the commission, where all concerns were well defined and they were established and clearly communicated to the applicant. Second application in 2022 was 3,600 square feet. It was more than the first application. Height, square footage, massing concerns. So that's just a cut and paste. Again, after careful consideration, site visits and review, application was denied due to the the height and the massing and the square footage. And this was much debated by the commission. Here we are, third application. It's approximately, quote, 3,500 square feet. And I'll stop here for a minute because I'm concerned about the approximate. At this stage in the game, you would think that the commission and more importantly, the applicant would have all of this data in order, approximately 3,500 whiffs of something. So I ask, is there attic? Is the porch also included in the square footage? Because those 2 areas above grade are supposed to be in that calculation. So once again, I'm suspicious of the 3,500. With all due respect to HTC Commission members, Concord citizens and staff, would you please ask the applicant to review all of the previous plans and elevations and height, the square footage, and the data in sequence, again, before this application or after is reviewed? That would include your deep concerns for the massing of these plans. Massing has always been super clear to the applicant from the commission. Regarding the current plan proposal, I suspect that the criteria established and defined by the HTC for this application, given height, distance from Lowell Road on the site plan, massing and square footage, compared to the current design and site data, has not changed. It has only been reworked into an additional rendition. And these fundamentally defined criteria that have been so clearly and painstakingly communicated by both citizens of the town of Concord and the Concord HTC in the past need not be altered by the factual behavior that the applicant is looking to simply erode the HDC integrity and the important historic texture of this site. One of the key gateway intersections to historic town of Concord. And again, there is one house that has been wedged on Lowell Road between a historic home just down the street that was developed by the current owner of this land. That was nothing but a problem. If some commissioners may remember, we had over 2 years of problems. And to this day, citizens are concerned, such as Bill Page has just quoted. Once again, this is an incredibly important lesson to all of us and sets an important precedent. And I'm grateful to this applicant and all of the time HTC has committed with their thorough process to teach and inform our greater community and generations to come. The decision of the HTC will show every one of us that paying close attention with deep consideration towards our constantly challenged historic and cultural values is worth it. This corner of Concord is hugely important to the history of our town. It should be preserved in its own right and not bargained or eroded away with a fitful applicant. He's not a developer. I see him as an applicant looking to benefit at the cost of the beautiful historic DNA of Concord. The people of Concord concerned with 615 Lowell Road are not against anyone building on this site. And I challenge Paul Ware on that. That's not the case. We want context. They only ask that every applicant is held to a standard that has been clearly defined with much help and guidance from the HTC regarding the context of each individual site in each of our beautiful and varied historic districts. I would highly disagree with Paul Ware's argument because Lexington Road is entirely different from this corner, entirely. Your decisions regarding this application up to this point have been lucid, concise, and clearly communicated. This applicant is genuinely not paying attention to what guidance and assistance you have provided. Someone once said, recently, I believe, that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's not the task of the HTC to teach a horse how to drink water or the values of hydration. Our decisions are set in history. Please know that your decision, HTC commissioners, sets a very important precedent for all of our futures and the built and permanent future of the bucolic quality of Hildreth Corner. This is a gateway to historic town of Concord. It's very different and very unique. Thank you for all of your insights, your considerations, and all of your best efforts. The people are grateful of Concord, are grateful for all of your hard work and considerations. With kind regards. As I read to you on a 90-degree angle, I would highly contest that this applicant has ignored so much valuable information and wasted at this point so much of our time. It's been so clear. You've already decided several times. I don't know why we're here. And the square footage is actually not changed or greater. Now, one last thing. One of our community members wasn't able to come. So I'm going to read this, that historically, the gambrel roof is just a ploy to make a 2-story building kind of sort of read like a 1.5 story. That's a basic trick that we all know about. These gambrel roofs are typical to pre-World War II suburban neighborhood developments and not historically appropriate to what would have been a very agrarian feel to this local district well into the 19th or 20th centuries. I think it's very clear as being a member for the HTC for almost 10 years, but more importantly, as a citizen, we're not against building. This is not about against building, because the HTC is there to help push things along, to help the community. It's about context. And in this case, it's about size. And this applicant has been told so many times that it's too big. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. Kristen Tyson.
Thank you. I think that I'm unable to start my video because the host has stopped it, but if that's something that the host can fix, great. And if not, great, thanks.
Okay, we'll try to fix it. And if you would be so kind to
All
identify yourself and where you live.
Sure. My name is Kristen Tyson. I live at 204 Hubbard Street here in Concord. My father-in-law lives at 685 Lowell Road, and that's where my husband grew up. He's been there for a few decades. And I really just have two main comments. The first is about this petition in particular. 615 Lowell Road has essentially reapplied with the same application 3 times in a row with respect to square footage. I'm sorry that I disagree with Mr. Ware that 100 square feet is not significant in this instance. It's like the emperor's new clothes. We're supposed to suddenly think that he's wearing something different, but ultimately still naked. I think what concerns me about it is that it is not in, and I think this is what everybody's concern is that it's not in proportion to the width of the piece of property that's being built on. There are many instances in town where people have made an appropriate sized dwelling to a narrow lot. I was driving around town the other day and drove by 43 Elm Street. It's a perfect example of a house that was essentially a new build, or not quite a new build, but a rebuild without a further expansion that honored the narrow width of the lot. Though the lot was larger, it is still narrow. But in particular, I'm thinking of 685 and 699 Lowell Road, which are, again, right down the street from this property, both historic homes in the area on lots that are actually rather substantial, but have chosen not to be too wide for the lot they're on, and therefore are proportional and historic to the nature of the community. At the end of the day, the gambrel roof is beautiful, and the paint colors and the landscaping can make a difference. And in some petitions, I feel that they do. But in this case, it's really lipstick on a pig. It's a huge, monstrous house. And I totally disagree with Mr. Ware that less than 3,500 square feet is not realistic. Some of us raise 3 children in 2,500 square feet and do just fine. It does not have to be a massive size home, and given the narrowness of the lot, should not be a massive size home. So I think that would be my major concern about the property. But I'm more concerned about the nature of the petition and the precedent that it sets for the future of the HDC. Again, for an applicant to come time after time, ignoring the words of the HDC and expecting maybe by attrition or wearing people down or potentially hinting at possible litigation, you know, in any way to sacrifice the independence of the HDC is really troubling. And quite frankly, I don't really know enough about the process to make a judgment, but it does raise concerns when town employees are opining on the work of the HDC. It seems to me that we have chosen as a town to create the HDC as the means for deciding whether or not a structure is historic and appropriate for a historic area. So I think that that decision should be reserved for you all tonight and not for any town employees or planners. Finally, I would just say that there is a right that needs to be balanced with respect to whether or not somebody can build something on this property. However, you don't have a right to maximize your profit at the expense of the rules that we in the town have agreed to live by. And these rules were all posted and everybody knew about them when there was a decision to subdivide, when there was a decision by a developer to buy the lot, and when there was a decision to build. If you wanted to build a 3,500 square foot structure, there are many other places in town where you can build. But if you choose to buy in the HDC, then you are limited by that. And you are limited by needing to balance it with the historic nature of the property. And it's disrespectful, not just to the HDC, but to the entire community to come back time after time with the same petition, with the same size house, and to expect everybody to be okay with the fact that essentially you're ignoring all the feedback that you've received. That's ultimately what I have tonight. And again, I just want to thank all of the members of the HDC for your careful work here. It must be exhausting, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tyson. Jason Myler.
Well, it is funny that I follow Ms. Tyson, who I do know.
Please identify yourself and your address, just for the record.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So Jason Myler, property owner, 1007 Lowell Road, so just up the street from Hildreth Corner, approaching Middlesex School. It's interesting for me to follow Ms. Tyson, who's a friend of mine, but I would say this, I appreciate everything the HDC has done here. I know it's tireless. I know it is a difficult job, but what I would say is I was recently at a lacrosse tournament, the NCAA Final Four, and one of the Maryland fans, which we are a Maryland fan, and Nick Brzezowski, son of Concord, who was a two-time captain at Maryland, now a Navy SEAL. The Maryland fan said to the official, sir, would you like a tent for this circus that you are creating? This has been a circus, okay? With Bushnell coming back multiple times with, adjusted plans. How many times to the well can they go, right? I mean, this is a waste of taxpayers' time. What I would ask is just take a look around, okay? Drive up Lowell Road, drive out Lowell Road, drive out Barrett's Mill, drive out Barnes Hill. What do you see? Do you see a gambrel roof? Do you see one lot away from that four corners, do you see anything like this? You don't. You definitely don't. Okay. You see, besides going back towards town on Lowell Road, the one modern house, which if anyone on this Zoom is of that owner, it's a different home than what you will see at any of those four corners. Okay. It is a very busy intersection at various times of the day. It is a very historic district, and would urge the HDC to keep with the historic nature of this important corner of the foundation of the town and all the history that's here. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Myler. John and Ruthann, Igo. I think he's muted.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My name is John Igo. I live at 44 Barrett's Mill Road. I'm a new resident in town. Even though I have been here 2 years, I feel like I'm just coming out because of COVID and I'm starting to meet people. I've been at a lot of these meetings, and I'm going to try to not repeat what everybody else said who has been opposed to this build, because I agree with everything they've been saying, both the board members and the citizens. I do want to address several things that concern me as a new member of the community. The first is the narratives that are being put forth around this build. One narrative is that the HDC operates in a way that is not conducive to allowing developers to build houses. My experience in my former town is that the HDC this HDC in this town bends over backwards to accommodate requests, to not step over their guidelines, and to provide guidance that any pragmatic contractor would be able to take and address in a follow-up meeting. An example of that is the 3,500 square foot number that we keep talking about. I've been very surprised that some of the narrative on the call says that 100 square feet is a compromise. Being somebody who deals in real estate, being somebody who does a lot of negotiation in business, if somebody moved less than 10% on the fourth offer, I would walk away from the deal, because in my opinion, that person's not negotiating in good faith. Another narrative that I hear is that the HDC is not acting in a consistent, independent manner. I have presented to the HDC. I have found the HDC to be reasonable. I have found the HDC actually to be insightful in things that I would not have considered. And as I observed many applicants now, because I actually enjoy coming to the meetings because I learn a lot, I have found the HDC is always fair. So it really concerns me as a new citizen in town that we're taking a committee that has such a difficult job in an incredibly historic community that people are moving to, like myself, and all of a sudden we're saying that that HDC committee is not doing its job. And so I really want to disagree with that. Another narrative that comes up is that the community, and again, I'm a new member, so I don't know a lot of the people on this call, but I'm meeting them in rapid fashion, that the community itself wants no bills. That is definitely not accurate, and it's misinformation. I've attended many private meetings with individuals. I've had very direct conversations and emails, probably way too many that I should have, that specifically say people are not opposed to build. They understand we have to build. The next narrative is something my mother taught me. Two wrongs do not make a right. So for us to sit in a meeting like this where we're controlling the destiny of one of the most historic towns in the country, especially the formation of our country, and to say that, you know what, we made these other decisions, so we can make a decision that really doesn't matter now and change the scope of a historic corner. To me, that is failed logic. There is a lot that sits right around the corner and actually abuts this property that I believe, and I'm fully aware of it when I bought my home, which stares at the lot, but I sit on my deck every night and I have a glass of wine and I say to my spouse, you know, someday there's going to be houses over there. And we need the HTC to be focused on making sure that those houses that are over there fit in with the character of the neighborhood. So again, I don't believe the community that I know in Concord, after being here for a very short period of time, is in a no-build area. I really want to thank the HDC for its consistency in its thought process and for the way it works with contractors and citizens. I was stunned when I was given a copy of the planning board letter, and I cannot find it online. I've been looking for it this evening, but I'm very surprised that that was not posted to the website, because it's critical for the 71 people on this call to see that letter from the planning board. I did some very quick research, given that I only received it on Monday because I specifically asked for it, even though it was written on the 27th of May. I did some very quick research, and I do not agree that that data is supportive of the decision the HDC has to make, because it has not been vetted. Similar to what one of the board members said, as a data analyst person, I went out and actually looked at some random properties and said, you know what, just the houses on Barrett's Mill Road, they're a mile away from the intersection. They have no contextual reference to what's going on in this intersection. And in fact, when I went there as a new member, I didn't even think they were in the historic district, because they're so far down Barrett's Mill Road. I had to go look up the map and really understand which address was. So in conclusion, I think the HDC has been very consistent in its decision-making process. I take issues with these narratives that are being supported in the meeting and in the town and by these other committees in the town. I'm committed to supporting the HDC, but as a new resident, I'm also committed to getting more involved now. I hope you can make an independent decision here. And again, I am pro-build, I am pro-contractor. I believe we need development, but I think development has to conform contextually and according to the guidelines that have been set up. And they are not obstructive at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ego. Martin, look.
Thank you, Luis. It's Martin Lueck here from 8 Barrett's Mill Road. And Luis, it's nice to see you and the other members of the HDC. I'm beginning to think we're all family. That notwithstanding, I note your preamble, your comments. I'm going to restrain myself from repeating the comments in my letter. And just add a couple of observations. I know it's been said before, but I will repeat to Mr. Ware that this is not a case of the neighbors wanting nothing built on that property. We understand the economics, we understand the history of the space, and indeed in all of our correspondence, I think with a few exceptions, with all of our correspondence, we acknowledge that the owner it is a buildable lot. However, all of the feedback from the 261 members of the community and the HDC consistently and nearly unanimously has been that all of the proposals offered by this developer have been too large and have included a garage which is deemed inappropriate for the historic context of this space. So I want to thank the HDC for their oversight and for their consistency. I also want to thank the planning division and members of that team. They generally we do a great job. Frankly, I love living in this town. We've been here for 22 years. We moved from Europe. We love it. But I am deeply disappointed. And I just note that, first of all, and again, it has been noted on this call, that a letter was written in support of this construction from the planning division, which applies undue, inappropriate pressure to the independent HDC by staff members of the town, citing statistics which we've just heard are inappropriate to the conclusion that's drawn. And I'd add to the list of considerations here, apart from the fact that they are different areas of town, they're different contexts. I'd also add that they're probably historically very different. These are not all properties that have been approved by the HDC over time. So I am just deeply disappointed that the planning division should take it upon themselves to offer an opinion like this, one. Two, that it was not posted publicly. Yeah, they're very well aware of the debate that's going on here. And three, as I think Mr. Page referred to, that all of the street signs were taken down in haste just days before this hearing. It strikes me as just, I was going to say not cricket, but that's not appropriate. It's not Concord. So finally, just to reiterate, we understand that the developer has the right to build, but there has been consistent feedback we're getting on for a year now, Mr. Bushnell, and the HDC encourages you to build. And my understanding is the town is embracing the idea of smaller properties. A young house, properties are so expensive in Concord, you can't get on the property ladder. A young house, a family downsizing, that could be me. Look, we need those smaller properties. So we would implore you to work with the HDC to adhere to the consistent, fair feedback you've been given and come back with an appropriate property that is a fraction the size of this and does not have a garage. I'll cease my comments there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewick. Erica Santoro.
Hi, yes, Erica Santoro, 625 Lowell Road. I just have a few comments. The first is a friend of mine lives in one of our historic districts in town and was remembering that a builder wanted to build a 4,000 square foot home on her lot about 9 years ago. The neighborhood and the community opposed the size. The application was denied by the HDC based on size, and the builder decided not to build there ultimately. Instead, a 2,600 square foot home was approved by the HDC and our friends moved in. It's beautiful, spacious, and it works well for her family of 4. This is how the process should work. If the HDC denies an application based on size, something that size should not be built there. Commissioner Ware has suggested that it's not fair to the builder if he has to build a smaller home, that what we're talking about is encouraging him to build something the size of a cabin. But my friend's house does not look nor feel like a cabin at 2,600 square feet. We have seen the HDC set limitations on size for many new houses, including height or width of structure. For 615 Lowell, it should be the limitation on the size and overall footprint of the building. One of the commissioners had said in the past that he could only vote for a house that was a third to a half of the size of the house in this application. If the length of the house is decreased by 1/3 to 1/2 of the size and the garage is eliminated, it would help protect the view shed from the historic corner. As we have heard time and time again, the HDC does have the authority to set limitations on size. The HDC sets limitations on size for other builders. In fact, the HDC sets limitations for all of us who live in a historic district, limitations that we work with. The issue here is that this builder has been unable to work with the limitations set by this committee. This committee has tried to guide this builder throughout 7 meetings over almost a year to help him build something that's appropriate for this lot. They've supported those elements of his application that are appropriate for the historic district and have repeatedly determined that the size of the structure is too big and that there is not an appropriate place for a garage. The issue here is not one of anti-developer bias, but one of a developer who's unwilling to budge or work within the restrictions of building in an important historic place. He has been unwilling to submit a plan that satisfies the reasons for denial based on size and garage. There are plenty of lots that are not in a historic district where a builder does not have to adhere to the guidelines. This is not one of those lots. We are not opposed to any building. We are opposed to this building due to the size and the density on this lot. This new application includes a house that is roughly the same size, likely larger in total building volume, including the garage, includes a 2-car garage. And in this design, the view shed from the historic corner will still change from mature trees to asphalt, cars, and garage. This committee has already deemed this inappropriate. The change in design, the angle of the drawings, and the omission of surrounding structures may give the perception that the structure will appear smaller, but the numbers don't lie. You've all seen the lot. The structure needs to be smaller, and there has not been a suitable size or location found for a garage on this lot. I also want to comment like others about the letter from a member of the Town Planning Division, which has been referenced tonight, in which there were numerous inaccuracies and misleading statements. First of all, the list of comparable lots is misleading and irrelevant. Only 5 of the 24 houses listed are in the Barrett Farm District. The majority are in town addresses in either the American Mile or Main Street historic districts. The character and preservation goals of these historic districts are different. In these town areas, the houses were larger, older, and closer together, and the goals were to provide a village setting and to preserve visual density, all contrary to Barrett Farm's preservation goals. The frontage comparisons in the letter are also misleading because although technically the lot has 150 feet of frontage, 44.28 feet of the frontage is not available for ingress, egress, or building due to an easement on the lot. Comparing acreage is also misleading because of the fact that 615 is the long, narrow lot, most of which is unbuildable. And finally, the letter contains an opinion from a member of the town planning staff stating that the builder has designed a house that is compatible architecturally with the streetscape and surrounding buildings, which we've heard tonight. But I do not believe that the town planning division should offer an opinion to the HDC, particularly when based on misleading rationale. The opinion in the letter is that the applicant had designed a house that is compatible architecturally with streetscape and the surrounding buildings, but the denials were based on the size of the structure and the garage, not on the architectural style. The structure in this application is roughly the same size and includes a 2-car garage, not satisfying the conditions of denial from the last 2 hearings. Approving this now would set a dangerous precedent that these important HDC decisions can be overturned if an applicant is persistent and threatening. The reason why so many of us in the community are here is because we believe in the important work of this committee. We believe in the protection of our historic places. It is why we live in these areas. We support this independent commission and its purpose to promote the general welfare of the public through the preservation and protection of buildings, places, and districts of historic or literary significance. Hildreth Corner is one of those places. Lastly, I'd like to thank the HDC for their continued fair and honorable efforts to preserve the historic significance of our community. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Santoro. Mr. van der Wansen, please. Paul van der Wansen.
I'm muted. My video is trying to turn it on, but somebody has turned it off.
We can hear you now.
Yeah?
Yeah,
All
we
right.
can hear you. We cannot see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Well, let's just try it that way.
And now we can see you.
There we go. We are here. So I'm Paul van der Wansen, 957 Lowell Road.
597.
597, yeah. And Heather, could you put up the last picture of the home on the property to be built? And the mastering showing the house 625 and 615.
Yes, just give me a second.
Thank you. I have written a letter. Hopefully, everybody got a look at it. And it goes back in history a little bit of the people who owned the house at 625 in the 40s and 50s up into the 60s, I believe, were the Kidder family. And the Kidder family built a house for themselves on their land. And you can see the vague outline. If you look at the upper left-hand side of that picture, you see vaguely the footprint of a house in the top left-hand corner. It's a little bit brownish, that spot there. That is the house they built. And they built it with a purpose that they didn't want to really impede on the views of the corner house because of the historic district. And although in those days, I believe it may not have been in place as a HDC, but they had an eye for how to do things. First of all, they built a more modern house, but they built it about at least 120 feet away from Lowell Road. So there was no obstruction at all from any way or place when you look at the Hildreth Corner house, especially their own house at 625. And you can now see that we're looking for an applicant who is having roughly a 40 feet setback from the road and is really shielding the house at the corner at 625. So one of my only remarks would be for tonight that I would think if we build anything there, which is likely, that we put it further back so it doesn't infringe upon the view of the corner house and the view from the road at the corner house, which is historically significant. I wish my best wishes to the whole HTC and the members and all their patience with this applicant. I'm surprised that we're still sitting here after almost 1 year, but I really am grateful that you guys doing a fantastic job and really adhering to what the purpose is of the HTC to preserve the historic districts and the view of the town as much as we can. Thank you for all your effort and good luck. Thank you.
Your patience.
Thank you, Mr. van der Bonsem. Are there any other people waiting to speak? Heather, you see anybody else? Richard Harrington.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The reason why, thank you to the public and to the committee members in the commission. The reason why we are here is under the hardship provisions of your rules and regulations section.
Okay, may I interrupt you for a second? I didn't realize that you were the applicant. I think that I have the option to conduct the meeting in such way that I believe that it's appropriate, because at this point, what we would like to do, it's in the absence of any other comments, then I would call for a vote.
That's
now,
why you accepted my invitation to speak, Mr. Chairman.
No, I accepted it under the incorrect. I accepted it under the incorrect assumption that you were a member of the public and you are the applicant. So I can certainly give the applicant time to speak as long as the applicant wants to abide by the rules of the commission. So what I was going to say, Mr. Harrington, that I'll be more than happy to have you speak. I believe that you had plenty of opportunity to express your views before, and you were not given any restrictions in time. So if you have something else to add, then I expect, and this commission expects, that will be something of substance. And I have to remind you that most of us are very familiar with all of the regulations of the Historic Districts Commission. And we're familiar not only with the regulations in terms of appearances and things like that, and that there are some occasions when we consider economic issues. In fact, there have been a number of examples when we do that. So I will expect that the comments that you are going to make are substantive and are not trying to develop a line of thinking that you have not proposed before, and therefore I would not have to consider it as part of the arguments of your application. So having said that, please proceed, Mr. Harrington. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that explanation. Over the 28 years I've worked in this town, we've been allowed to listen to the comments, which I just thanked everyone on, and we'd like to seek a continuance based upon the recommendation from Mr. Moss and Mr. Ware of substantial conditions to seek a certificate of appropriateness. I've listened to the testimony in addition to other items, and we would like to be afforded that opportunity. And we thank everyone for their time and efforts. That's the purpose of right now. In addition, Dennis talked about, going along with what we decide, and there's some other testimonies and feelings of this process, which are fine in the public forum, but we would like to memorialize our comments in a letter and along with draft conditions to seek if that's with substantial conditions, the board would reconsider and issue a certificate of appropriateness for this project.
Okay, I heard the comments very carefully from all of the commissioners, and there was a healthy differences in perspectives. But I sense that there was a majority of the commissioners which did not believe that this project had the potential to fulfill the requirements of the Historic Districts Commission. Therefore, I have to question the rationale for asking for a continuance if you are going to continue the proposal, then you are going to be basing your continuance on the current project that is being considered. And this commission has expressed a number of times that that project is reflective of other projects, and all those projects uniformly have been rejected by this commission.
Mr. Chairman.
So I have to ask you specifically, what's the rationale for asking for a continuance of a project that seems to have the understanding from the commission that it's probably not viable? Could you explain that?
The applicant met 3 times with staff, and he could have appealed the last application, but it was thought of that this 1.8 hardship allowed him to return back to this application, which we're speaking of tonight.
Okay, if I may clarify,
it's common courtesy to allow the applicant to prepare some rebuttal based on new information that was given to them tonight in a public forum. That's so we're respectfully requesting that.
Okay, and it's something that we always approve and we always grant. But again, I will not allow this forum to become a venue to establish precedents that are not relevant to the deliberations of this commission. If you want to make an assumption of economic hardship, then I will refer you to the rules and regulations of the HDC, and I will say that my interpretation of those rules imply that this applicant does not qualify as a case of economic hardship.
That wasn't brought up at all.
Well, exactly, no, but if you just had mentioned that, you see, so I thought that was what you were going to talk about. But
one more aspect of knowledge, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your time on Walden Street, where you stayed after our site walk, and I got to know you and your background a little bit further as you sit on a volunteer board, similar to what I did with the Merrimack River Watershed Council for 3 years. Everyone brings expertise to a project in this commission that is appreciative. So with that respect that you gave us on that day at a different project and that I appreciated, I'm respectfully asking on my behalf, because I was hired after this application was filed. So anything to do with hardship that the applicant believes he has and the testimony they heard tonight from the commission, I would like the opportunity as a professional to reply back and rebut, and I'll either tell the applicant that the chair's right, you don't have a hardship, or the chair's wrong, I disagree, here's the information, and we'll memorialize it in writing, and the board can decide. Simple.
Yeah, it's simple from that formulation, but it's not simple from the perspective that this commission has been tasked with making determinations of whether a structure or a proposal is appropriate for the historic district. And what the consensus that has been generated shows is that this proposition is probably not something that the Historic District Commission, with a majority vote, will be able to approve. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to ask a town council to advise me and advise the HDC about what should be the next steps. From my perspective, we have completed a hearing. We have reviewed plans that were submitted. Those plans were clearly presented to the members of this commission and were reviewed, and a number of comments were made on them. So I don't believe that there is anything further that can be discovered by continuing deliberations about this application. But again, I'm going to ask Mr. Macarius to provide advice about whether we should consider continuing this application or not. You want to go ahead, Minya?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly respect that this has taken a lot of time and many nights of hearings and testimony. Let me just make a few observations from what I just heard and where the commission might go from here. The applicant at this moment appears to be asking for a continuance. I note that this is a case where there is not a, or really nothing can go forward and be built until you all decide. So I note for that reason that the applicant is essentially taking the delay is for them. That was noted earlier, and the delay is more detrimental to them than anyone else. I just want one side of that. Hearing has happened, comments have been made. Some of the comments, several of the comments tonight made reference to the discussion of size of other buildings and other structures on other lots, both within this district and other historic districts. Under your Historic District Act, that is one, and I think that's also in your guidelines, which were referenced separately. The size of other structures in the district is a very relevant. It's one of the three issues that must be looked at for size. The reference that was made by many of the commenters and several commission members was to Heather's, Ms. Gill's letter, which attempted to compare some sizes. And there were some questions back and forth, I believe, about whether those were relevant or not. If I am understanding the applicant correctly, and this is for the commission to decide whether they believe they would like the time to hear that, there appears to be some concern, or at least some desire to address some of those issues that were raised today. I think several commenters noted they hadn't seen that letter, and several members of the public had it. I do note there is nothing inappropriate about members of staff advising a board. I just want to be very clear about that. That is actually a privilege that towns like Concord have. And I respectfully would just say, while it is the commission's ultimate decision, it is the job of staff and one of the to advise, and then ultimately it's your decision. So those would be certainly reasons for you to consider a continuance. It's ultimately the commission's decision as well. But I just note that it is not clear to me whether the continuance is entirely to raise a new issue, which I do agree would be inappropriate after public comment has closed and after you've done so much work on this, as opposed to address lingering concerns and to note potential mitigating conditions that the applicant might propose, because at least 2 members of the commission have raised that, acknowledging that others may find even that is insufficient.
Thank you very much, Ms. Macarius. I don't have a clear picture. What are we continuing? See, usually continuances are carried out when there are partial modifications of a project that can be implemented and that can be reviewed. We have seen this application many times, and I don't see that there has been any substantial difference between one project or another. So I personally don't see exactly what's the purpose of having a continuance. You see, the applicant is certainly has his right to accept the decision of this commission and then submit an application that reflects the recommendations that have been given to him. And that, I believe, it's one way to keep the process going forward. And we have again repeated that we don't have any opposition. The applicant building a structure there. What we have rejected now a number of times is the same proposal that was presented today. So I don't see what's the rationale or the motive for continuing such application. So I don't believe that there's any need for any further discussion. I think that we have been properly informed by the town attorney, and we have heard many comments from members of the public. So at this point, I believe that it's appropriate that I will ask for a motion by the voting members of the commission, which I reiterate include Dennis Fiore, Peter Nobili, Melinda Shomboy, Paul Ware, and myself. And I will ask for a motion that takes into account the discussions that just took place. And that motion will be either to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject the application of 615 Lower Road. So can I hear a motion on that subject?
Luis,
yes.
Paul has his hand up. He has a question.
Yeah, but I think that we finished the process of making comments. We all had the opportunity to make a number of comments, and I don't believe that we should separate from or deviate from the rules that we established before. You see, we said that every commissioner was going to have an opportunity, and that there were going to be public comments, and then the applicant asked for additional time, which created an exchange that was informative. But after all that information has been processed, I don't see any other reason to continue making comments, because I don't see what would be the purpose from the standpoint of the mandate and the responsibilities of the HDC. So I reiterate my request.
Did I address town council?
Yeah, I think that I will let the town council make a decision on this matter, because I believe that we're breaking protocol. Where's Mr. Karis? Yeah, go ahead, Mina.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, what the question is.
Well, the question is that I'm being asked to have a commissioner add additional comments after
No, I don't want to make additional comments. I wanted to ask
what I heard. Yeah.
A clarifying question.
Let's have Mr. Ware ask a clarifying question.
So my concern here is just the due process issue. Is there I agree with the chair that this has been an endless process, well documented over a long period of time. It's time for a vote. Is it possible that the applicant can submit something after the vote, which the chair would be entitled to consider if he thought it appropriate, so that in effect the vote might be provisional for 10 days or 20 days until he receives what the applicant wants to file. I'm concerned only about the due process here.
Okay, I am also very much concerned about due process, and I am trying to figure out exactly what type of due process is being carried out when an applicant is given a prerogative that it's not given to any other applicant, which is to continue an application that according to some of opinions of members of the HDC is flawed, and therefore, taking that into account, I believe that what the applicant is asking is something that it's not defined, that it's not clear. You see, he wants to ask something about what. There are very clear procedures that can be implemented in this setting, and what the procedure, what the fairness of the procedure calls for is to have comments, listen to the comments from the public, and then put the motion for a vote. The applicant wants a continue, but a continue of what? Of the same design that we have here? Or is a continuous where he's going to question the decision based on procedure? So I don't see any of that venues as being available from the standpoint of the rules and regulations of the commission. So that's the reason that I believe that at this point, the applicant has the option of having his proposal either approved or rejected, or approved with conditions. And if the application is rejected, he certainly has the opportunity to take into account the recommendations that have been made by members of this commission many times and submit a new design. And this commission will again be more than pleased to consider that application and proceed accordingly. But I just still don't see exactly what is the rule or regulation or the understanding that allows this procedure to be applied, whereby which an applicant continues an application that has been deemed inappropriate by the members of this commission. So I think that we should not belabor this point anymore. I think that we heard from a distinguished member of our commission. We heard from the town attorney. We heard from
Mr.
the
Chair,
applicant.
may I answer the question Mr. Ware asked? And I'm sorry, but I did not, I just want to be clear, I did not suggest that there may be no further information, because that was said earlier. It is, and let me just, I'll give the guidance. It is your call ultimately. Again, it is not atypical for boards, committees, and commissions across the Commonwealth to hear public comment and then to consider if there are issues that are open as to the factors that they must consider that either the applicant, other commenters, members of the commission believe need to be clarified, to have that clarification received. To Mr. Ware's question, it would be uncommon to have a provisional vote. So I do, Mr. Ware, I don't think it would necessarily be appropriate to have a provisional vote, because that suggests a sort of reconsideration. It sort of assumes a reconsideration, which is certainly a vehicle that the commission has available to it if new information comes to light. But it's not the typical process. So I would say if you close tonight, you're probably done tonight. Anything after would really be in the form of asking for reconsideration, to answer your question. In terms of any additional information, again, it's your call. It is, I assume, I guess, Mr. Chair, I have a question for you, just to make sure I understand the process you intend to follow. Now that you have had initial comments from commissioners, public comments, whatever motion comes up, I would assume there's further deliberation from commissioners, or not? No,
I will ask for a motion, and that motion will be whatever it is, and they will be subjected to a vote, and that vote will carry by a majority of 3.
let me respectfully say that part is slightly atypical, to have the comments of the commission happen before the testimony is completed. Certainly.
Well, but I think that we are not understanding each other in the sense that the process has completed. The applicant presented his project. Each member of the Historic Districts Commission made his and her comments.
Okay.
Then there was a period of public comment, and what the rules and regulations call are for the discretion of the chair to have the applicant make additional comments, which were made at this time. And after that, the chair has the responsibility of calling for a vote to continue approve with conditions, or reject. That's the process as I see it. What I'm questioning here is exactly what is that we're doing by continuing an application that has been clearly presented and that has no questions. You see, nobody has brought up any issues that need to be clarified. The application is perfectly clear, it's very well presented, and every member of the commission, as well as the members of the public, have an exact idea of what is being proposed. So I don't know exactly what is that the new information that we're going to discover. If that information refers to a recommendation made by a town employee, well, those recommendations are entirely irrelevant to the commission from the standpoint of the way that the commission works, because town employees are not members of the commission. The town's employees are, of course, required and are expected to work with all members of the public, and in this case, one of them has clearly been helpful in trying to help the applicant. But that doesn't mean that the recommendations that were made by this particular town employee need to be followed by the Historic District Commission. Furthermore, several members of the commission pointed to the fact that the conclusions that are included in this report are not supported by the data. So the question that I have is that the applicant has a perfectly defined venue to continue this process. And that process is that the application may be approved, may be rejected, etc. If it's rejected, the applicant has 20 days to appeal the decision. And in those 20 days, I believe that all the process that the applicant is asking for can be carried out. You see, the applicant wants to have additional data or additional information, or present data that indicates that this particular project is appropriate for whatever perspective he or may want to put forward, then that is perfectly fine. So I don't see why do we have to deviate from our normal procedures and do something that would be highly unusual. So I will again ask the members of the Historic Districts Commission.
Mr. Chair, I apologize, but we're now talking about sort of an area in my purview a little bit. An appeal would be to the Superior Court, just to be clear. It would not, excuse me, it would not be at that point an opportunity to ask for or request additional information. It would take this matter to the Superior Court. I just want to be very clear about that. It is not a chance, an opportunity to come back to that commission unless there's a request for reconsideration.
Okay, well then I regret that I have conveyed information incorrectly in the terms that an appeal has to be in the form of a tribunal. Let me formulate the issue in a different way. This applicant has received a substantial amount of information about the positive and negative features of his particular proposal. This applicant has received substantial amount of feedback from the members of this commission. And that feedback has been legitimized by large members of the public who have expressed opinions that are that reflect more or less the opinions of at least some of the commissioners. So I believe that this application has received a fair hearing. And if you disagree with that, I would like to know that, because that would be a piece of information, Mr. Mikarios.
I do not disagree with that.
Okay.
There's been sufficient information. Well, let me say this. I don't disagree that there's been a fair hearing. I would say it is up to individual commissioners to decide whether they believe they've heard enough, or if there's anything more that they would like to hear on the factors that are before you to make your decision with respect to the application before you. That's really the key.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's the reason that I have asked my fellow commissioners to make a motion to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject. Because if a majority of the commissions believe that there's a need for further information, that it's yet to be discovered, that would change the tenor of the discussions, then that would be perfectly appropriate. On the other hand, if the majority of the commission is convinced one way or the other, then the motion would reflect exactly that. So that's the reason that I don't believe that doing any procedure different from what it's being called for, which is, again, continue, approve conditions, or reject, has any role. So I will ask again from the members of the Historic Districts Commission to make a motion. Dennis?
I would like to make a motion and a bit of a clarification, and that is that I think this needs a fresh look. If they're going to come back again, I don't see the continuance is going to give that to us. In my mind, I think that this application should be denied, and I'm moving to deny the certificate of appropriateness for 615 Lowell Road. And this is based on the size, scale, and massing. It's not appropriate to the land area, configuration of the lot, neighboring structures, and surrounding historic streetscape. And also, we've heard that the garage is inappropriate. So that's my motion.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Do I have a second for that motion? Is there a second? Melinda Shumway seconded the motion. So I'm going to go around the voting members of the commission, and I will ask them, each one of them, for their vote. Dennis Fiore.
I vote in favor of the motion.
You are voting in favor of denying the motion, denying the application.
Right.
Okay. So Peter Nobili.
Aye.
Melinda Shumway.
Aye.
Paul Ware.
Oh, sorry. Aye.
So you are voting yes.
I'm voting yes to deny the application.
Okay. And I will put my vote, and my vote is yes to deny the application. So the application is denied. I want to thank not only the members of the public, but also the members of the commission. And I want to thank the applicant for being so tenacious. And I look forward to working in the future for wonderful design that will satisfy the historic references of the city of Concord. Not having any other matters, I will ask for a motion to finish the meeting. Paul?
Could I just make a comment, not about the substance here, but I think there were many critical comments about Heather Gill tonight and her memo, and I leave that to the judgment of time and the facts. But I do want to say that this was a valued member of the planning team who assisted the commission for many years. And I wouldn't want, since she's just left, this to be the defining comment on her skill set or her loyalty to the town or to preservation of historic districts. So I don't know the context in which she was requested to do this. I don't know what she was asked to do. And I think we have to be careful of making judgments about Heather or Heather's competence. And I just want that on the record.
As the chair of the commission, I want to recognize Paul Ware for having made what is a very fair and humane observation. For those of us that have to make important decisions based on data, these are not trivial matters. Other people may have different perspectives, and therefore they may be open to obtaining conclusions that are not so restrained in the same way that a person like me would have them. But that certainly does not detract whatsoever in the fact that we had worked with a devoted and efficient member of the town government, and that I don't have any question, and here I will speak in behalf of myself, but I'm sure that I'm speaking in behalf of every single member of this commission, that we have the greatest admiration and appreciation for Heather Gill, and that we absolutely wish her the very, very best in her future endeavors. And I thank you for having made that observation, Paul. Well, if there's anything else, I think that it's time to go home.
You still need a motion, correct?
Yeah, I asked for a motion. I didn't get it.
I move that we end the meeting.
I'll second that, and I'm already home.
Okay, I would like to, let's have a voice, a quick vote. Dennis.
Aye.
Henry.
He's already gone.
Henry, can you raise your hand to say that we should leave?
He's not a voting member anyway, so that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Peter.
Aye.
Melinda.
I've got a date with the Celtics. Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for your enormous work, and thanks to the members of the public for being supportive of our efforts.
All right. Good night, all.
Good night, all.
Good night.